What if the person you trusted most shattered everything you believed in? For 24 years, I thought my marriage was built on love, loyalty, and shared dreams. But one night, everything unraveled. A man pretending to be a millionaire, a sister's meddling whispers, and a wife's quiet betrayal. It was a perfect storm I never saw coming. How do you rebuild when the life you knew turns into a lie? This is a story of heartbreak and resilience, of confronting deception and finding the strength to move forward. It's not just about the end of a marriage. It's about rediscovering yourself in the aftermath. Let me know if you'd like any changes or if I should move on to creating the images for the story. There's something unsettling about recognizing toxic people from miles away, yet being tethered to them indirectly. I've mastered the art of dodging manipulators. Life teaches you that quickly. But then there's my wife, kind, loyal, and perhaps too trusting. Her closeness to her sister has always been a blind spot, a bridge I've never been able to cross without friction. Tonight, as I swirl the amber liquid in my glass, I can't help but reflect on how that sister's influence, wrapped in the guise of good intentions, has slowly poisoned the air between us. My thoughts drift, uninvited, to my wife's unwavering defense of her sibling. I've learned to bite my tongue during family dinners where sly jabs feel disguised as playful banter. It's exhausting trying to reconcile love and war in the same room. As I sit here, half distracted, a soft buzz from my phone signals a notification. The message? Just routine, but it reminds me I'm not truly alone, even in my silence. Tonight, though, feels different. A quiet unease hangs in the air. Outside, the moonlight casts silvery streaks on my car, a piece of tech so advanced it won't let me drive after more than 2 drinks. A marvel of safety, some would say. I lean back, staring at it. A muted sigh escapes me, mixed with the faint burn of whiskey lingering on my tongue. Life used to be simple, didn't it? Back when love wasn't tangled with expectations and outside voices. My reverie breaks when I notice a patrol car rolling slowly past my house. The officer gives me a nod, his face familiar yet distant. He stops for a quick chat, probably noticing my faraway stare. "Quiet night, huh?" he says casually, his tone almost teasing. I nod, exchanging pleasantries. It feels grounding, this brief exchange, a reminder that life outside my bubble continues undisturbed. But inside, my thoughts churn like an unstoppable tide. As the officer drives away, I'm left with the faint echo of his words. "Stay safe out there," he had said, almost as if sensing the storm brewing within me. Safety, I think to myself, is a fragile concept. It's not just about the physical world, but the emotional one. My wife's laughter filters through the walls, carefree and sweet. And yet, there's an edge to it tonight, a sharpness I can't quite place. Something is shifting, I feel it, and I'm not sure I'm ready for what comes next. It started with whispers, barely noticeable at first, like the faint rustle of leaves before a storm. Her demeanor had shifted lately, small things I told myself weren't worth overthinking. But tonight, the pieces clicked into place. My wife had been meeting someone, a man who wore wealth like a badge of honor. Except now, I know it's all a facade. He wasn't who he pretended to be. My gut churns as the realization washes over me. Betrayal isn't just an act. It's a dismantling of trust, layer by fragile layer. Her sister's handprints are all over this, I'm certain. She's the one who fed her the fantasy, stoking dissatisfaction where there once was harmony. "You deserve more," she must have whispered. More what? More emptiness dressed in a flashy suit? I had always worked to provide, not extravagantly perhaps, but steadily, with intention. My satisfaction came from seeing her happy. That's what love is, isn't it? Yet, here I am, blindsided by the realization that I wasn't enough. The first time I confronted her about her distance, she denied it. Of course she did, but the signs were there. The guarded texts, the late nights excused as catching up with friends. Tonight, though, I stumbled on proof. A message left open on her phone. A brief exchange, just enough to uncover the truth, but not enough to satisfy my growing questions. The sting of it cuts deeper than I imagined. I close my eyes, replaying years of memories now tainted with doubt. It wasn't just about him. No, it was about the choices she made leading to this moment. Choices shaped by a craving for something more, something unattainable. I wonder if she even realizes the irony, being lured by a man pretending to be rich while discarding the genuine stability we built together. The thought fills me with equal parts anger and pity. She's chasing a mirage, one that will disappear the moment reality sets in. As I sit alone in the quiet of our home, the weight of it settles on me. 24 years of marriage, undone by deceit. Or was it something more insidious? A slow erosion of trust, orchestrated by whispers and discontent. I don't confront her tonight. I'm not ready. Instead, I let the storm brew within me, each thought sharpening my resolve. Tomorrow will bring answers, and with them, decisions I never thought I'd have to make. The confrontation wasn't planned, but moments like this rarely are. I hadn't slept, the anger simmering under the surface, waiting for the right spark. When she walked into the kitchen that morning, I knew it was time. My voice, steadier than I expected, carried the weight of everything I'd uncovered. Her eyes widened, darting around as though searching for an escape. But there was none. I know, I said, 2 words that hung in the air, heavy and unyielding. She tried to explain, stammering through excuses that felt rehearsed, shallow. It wasn't serious, she said, as if that would soothe the sting. My chest tightened with disbelief. Serious or not, the betrayal was deliberate, a choice. Her sister's role came to light too, an enabler cloaked in familial loyalty. Every word she spoke seemed to dig the knife deeper. I held my ground, though, not letting her emotional pleas derail my intention. This wasn't about winning an argument. It was about reclaiming my dignity. By mid-morning, I'd already made my first move. Her sister's car, a loan we had agreed to years ago, was the first to go. I called the dealership, ending the arrangement without warning. It wasn't petty, it was justice. Actions have consequences, and I was no longer in the business of sparing her feelings or theirs. The look on her face when she found out was priceless, a mix of disbelief and fury. For once, I felt satisfaction instead of guilt. I spent the rest of the day consulting with lawyers, gathering the strength I needed to protect what was left of my life. Every conversation felt like a step closer to freedom, but also a reminder of what was slipping through my fingers. The legal process would take time, but the emotional distance? That began today. I was no longer her protector, her confidant. That role had been fractured the moment she chose deception over loyalty. The evening ended with silence, a deafening kind that filled every corner of the house. She tried to approach me, her tone softer, almost pleading, but I was done listening to her explanations. The papers would soon be ready, and I intended to proceed without hesitation. I wasn't just divorcing her. I was divorcing the person she'd become under her sister's influence. My mind was set, though my heart still wavered, caught between anger and heartbreak. Somewhere deep inside, I still wanted answers, even if I knew they wouldn't change a thing. I didn't think I'd ever cross paths with him, but life has a way of delivering its twists. His name surfaced in conversations, whispered by those who knew his reputation. A man who preyed on vulnerabilities, weaving lies so elaborate they seemed unbreakable. My wife wasn't his first target, nor would she be his last. When I finally saw him, I was struck by how unremarkable he looked, average in every sense. Yet beneath that facade, there was something sinister, something calculated. The confrontation took place where he least expected, his workplace. A corporate office, sterile and professional. The perfect setting for a man who hid behind a veneer of success. He tried to play coy at first, brushing off my accusations as misunderstandings. But I had evidence, and when I laid it out, the mask cracked. His smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of panic. I wasn't just some naive husband. I was a man intent on exposing the truth. He confessed more than I expected. His modus operandi, as he called it, was almost rehearsed, a script he'd perfected over time. He targeted married women, crafting elaborate stories to win their trust and destabilize their marriages. It wasn't about love, it was about control. The satisfaction he gained from tearing lives apart was chilling. But today, the tables had turned. His lies were unraveling, not just in my life, but in his. Word of our encounter spread quickly, reaching his superiors. By the end of the day, he was escorted out of the building, his termination swift and final. I watched from a distance, not out of pity, but with a grim sense of closure. He had played the game too long, and now he was paying the price. Yet, as satisfying as it was to see him face consequences, it didn't undo the damage he'd caused. I drove home that night, the weight of the day pressing down on me. My thoughts were a blur of anger, relief, and something harder to define. He was out of the picture, yes, but the scars he left behind remained. My wife's betrayal, her sister's meddling, his manipulation, it all felt like a web I couldn't fully escape. Still, a small part of me felt lighter, as though I'd taken the first real step toward reclaiming my life. The road ahead would be long, but for the first time, I could see it clearly. Sitting in the quiet of my study, I found myself reflecting on the life I thought we had built together. 24 years of marriage. That's no small feat. I had always believed in the power of intention, that every act of love and commitment was a brick in the foundation of something unshakable. Yet here I was staring at the cracks that had been forming all along. How'd I miss them? Was I blind, or was I simply too hopeful to see the inevitable? My mind drifted to the early days, the way she used to look at me with unfiltered admiration. Back then, satisfaction came easily. Shared meals, quiet nights, plans for the future. It wasn't extravagant, but it was ours. Somewhere along the way, though, those shared dreams had shifted, warped by external influences and unspoken resentments. Her sister's whispers, her own doubts. They had planted seeds of discontent, and I hadn't realized until it was too late. The betrayal felt personal, yet I couldn't ignore its calculated nature. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment mistake. It was premeditated. Her actions weren't just a lapse in judgment. They were choices, deliberate and sharp, cutting through the trust we had built. It wasn't just about the other man. It was about the deeper cracks in our relationship, cracks I now saw had been widened by her sister's constant meddling. Amid the turmoil, one constant gave me strength: my daughter. She had always been observant, wise beyond her years. When I told her the truth, her reaction wasn't one of shock, but quiet understanding. I've always known Mom and Aunt weren't the best influences on each other, she admitted, her voice steady. Her support felt like a lifeline, grounding me in the chaos. She, too, felt the sting of betrayal, but her resilience inspired me to find my own. As I sat there, lost in thought, I realized this was the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. My love for her had been real, as had my efforts to build a life together. But love alone isn't always enough. I had fought to keep us afloat, but I couldn't fight for someone who wasn't willing to meet me halfway. It was time to let go, not just of her, but of the expectations that had tethered me to a version of her that no longer existed. The day the divorce was finalized, I felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, sadness, and a faint flicker of hope. It wasn't the ending I had envisioned for us, but it was the one we had reached. The settlement was fair, even meticulous. There would be no alimony, no prolonged battles over finances. The agreement was clear. She would continue supporting her sister, but not with any part of what we had built together. That chapter of my life was closed, and I was ready to reclaim what was left of my peace. The house felt different after she left. Quieter, emptier, but not entirely devoid of warmth. My daughter and I found solace in each other's company, an unspoken understanding that we were in this together. She had chosen to stay with me, not out of pity, but because she saw through the illusions her mother and aunt had created. Her laughter, though scarce, began to fill the halls again. Slowly, the space that once echoed with betrayal began to hum with a sense of renewal. People often say that endings bring clarity, and I found that to be true. Looking back, I could see how our relationship had unraveled long before the betrayal. The signs had been there, small fractures in our foundation that I had chosen to ignore. But now, those cracks no longer held power over me. I had made mistakes, sure, but my intentions had always been pure. And for the first time in years, I felt free to pursue satisfaction on my own terms. She reached out once, a brief and tentative message. "I hope you're doing well," it read. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. No closure she could offer that I hadn't already found within myself. She had made her choices, and I had made mine. Forgiveness, if it came, would be a quiet thing. Something for me, not for her. I had no intention of reopening wounds that were finally beginning to heal. As the weeks turned into months, I began to rediscover parts of myself I had forgotten. Simple pleasures like morning walks, cooking new recipes, or even reading a book uninterrupted. Life was far from perfect, but it was mine again. The future stretched ahead, uncertain yet full of possibility. For the first time in years, I wasn't looking back. I was looking forward, ready to embrace the next chapter with open arms.
Keep watching our stories by clicking on one of the videos that appear on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to be alerted about new videos. See you next time.